Hello everyone fans and welcome to my review of Womb. Now this movie, there's not a lot to say about it if I'm perfectly honest. There's about two main characters and that's it. So it's very quick. It'll be hopefully a quick review. You may notice that I have a ton of notes, but believe me, a lot of it is me making little commentary and questions I'll be asking you. Let's put a spoiler warning up right now, just so none of you guys who really wanted to go see Womb can go see it. Now, one thing I have to say about this movie is that there are a lot of shots in this movie that don't particularly add anything, but don't take anything away. The prime example I can think of is when we have Rebecca, Eva Green's character, in the bathtub as a kid, and then as a kid, and then as an adult. I mean, this doesn't really need to be there. It just kind of shows that she hasn't changed much, I suppose, or even with her in bed playing with her belly. So, I mean, a lot of scenes are like that, though, that kind of, they don't need to be there, but they are, and they're not bad or anything. But it does, for some people, it will slow this movie to an absolute crawl. This would be a very hard movie to trudge through, I'd have to say. If you aren't used to a drama, or you're not used to a film without a lot of action, this movie would be very, very, very hard to sit through. I mean, even let's say if you liked Cracks. I went from Cracks to this, and they are so different. So, the first time I watched Womb, I didn't very much like it. I didn't care for it, I found it kind of boring, and so on and so forth. I think the best parts of the movie are when post Tommy, Matt Smith's character's death, to when he's an adult again. That is the strongest point of the movie, I think. It brings up the most interesting kind of commentary on, or kind of questions that we would have, such as, one part I really liked about the movie was that happened during this part, was the kind of stigma against clones. I mean, we're not at a point at all where we could do it perfectly, but the fact that it seems commonplace in this world, whenever this is set, it's interesting, and that it's done enough that there's a stigma against them. And I thought that was very, very interesting, and it kind of goes up to one where it's Tommy's party and no one comes because they find out he's a clone because of the nurse. Way to go, Rose. You know, you destroy one doctor's happiness, you don't have to destroy another's. It's a shame the movie kind of drops it. I mean, I don't know how far they could have gone with it in the long run, because once no one shows up to his party, because everyone knows, or all the parents are like, he's a clone, and, oh, what did they say? It's something like, there's nothing wrong against them, but we just don't want our kids exposed to them. It's like, what? It's the same kind of stigma and the same kind of things used on pretty much any minority throughout history, so yeah, I found that to be the most interesting aspect of the movie, and again, it gets dropped as soon as they move away, because no one can, you know, prove it, or no one probably cares, because they're so far out. I also like in the, the house, when they go to the beach house, it's like, they're neighbors. This one kid is a neighbor who disappears once Tommy grows up, which is interesting. Though not much is explained on him. I mean, it's not about Tommy, it's more about Rebecca. But that's besides the point. But apparently they're neighbors, but they film it all the time, then it makes it look like some remote little house in the beach that's completely empty, and that's, I guess, what they wanted to feel, the feeling of kind of loneliness, emptiness. All those great emotions. Maybe we should go back to the beginning of the movie. So, I think the relationship between Matt and Eva Green's characters is it works. I mean, as kids, again, one thing I praise about Golden Compass is the kids act very kid-like, and it's very true for this movie. They act very much like they would be childhood sweethearts. It's very well acted. Matt Smith. We'll get back to Matt Smith. The relationship in the beginning is very, very well done, and it feels very genuine. Tommy's that kid, though, who never kind of grows up, and, it's not great, I don't like that. But, yeah, he's a very popular kid, but then as an adult, he's just that weird kid that you don't want to deal with. Believe me. I know. I wanted to note, too, when she leaves the island as a little kid, because she, as you know, if you've seen the film, she comes back, she seemed to care more about Tommy than her grandpa, and apparently he dies not too long after, so maybe you should have put some thought into your grandpa's farewell. Because he waved at you, but you didn't do anything to him. I mean, maybe you couldn't see him. But yeah, when they come back, the chemistry is very good, although, Matt Smith. But, the two work really well off each other. They do seem very much like childhood sweethearts, and they both acted very, very well. for the most part. At least the romance is well acted. The rest of it from Matt Smith. We'll just save all the Matt Smith discussion for later. Also, I want to say, his death could have been so easily avoided if you had paid attention to the road at all. I mean, I can kind of see this character probably wouldn't, but still, like, look outside your window. And I know Rebecca said he was going very fast, and I can but I mean, at the same time, I don't think he was, because he stopped not too far off from where the car was. So he hit him, and then he stopped pretty immediately. So he couldn't have been going that fast, and it wasn't hit and run. He didn't just keep going. So again, could have been easily avoided. And I thought, we'll get back to this later, but it seems like Rebecca kind of blames herself for that happening in the movie. Which is interesting. The reason I like the middle part so much is because it's the relationship between her and Tommy is a very, very strange one, but it still feels very genuine, like a real mother-son relationship, even though it would be her mode is probably more questionable than anything else. But yeah, I think it's very well done, and it seems very well acted, and Ira Green was a great choice for the film, all things considered, and this is one of her best performances, I would say. I like Miss G more as a performance, but I think she does a great job here too, just being such a shy, cold, distant person. That you need to see it if you're an Ira Green fan to see her in action, but I feel for the most part, a lot of people aren't going to be very interested in the film. Also, I want to mention that once Matt Smith gets hit, it's very interesting that, like, good luck explaining, because he wanted to cause mass hysteria with cockroaches. It'd be very interesting if the cops went around looking around in the car and they found that. I would be a little confused if I was perfectly honest. To say the cloning process in this movie, I know obviously we aren't at the point yet that you can do this completely, but it's so vague as how you do it. It's hinted that you have to exhume the body, but then the father gives Rebecca something which I assume is his sperm, and what? I don't think it works like that in the slightest. From my basic knowledge, because we are made up of, in biology, we know that we are created by genetic pairings of both our parents, so we get 24 chromosomes of our mother and then 24 of our father, and then we get all 48 of them. So she would need to have the egg of the mother and the sperm of the father, but even at that point, at the same time, it wouldn't be an exact replica. It would be different, as that's why we have siblings, because it's different coding and different ways to fight, or for natural selection. So, how does she do it? It's not very clear. I mean, I guess she could take the DNA from Tommy, but then why does she need the father's sperm? I don't know. Maybe send the... It's really vague, and I don't think that takes away from the movie in any way, but I just don't know if he knew what he was talking about, the director who also wrote it. Maybe he did, maybe he knows more than I do, but it seems a little sketchy at the moment. My favorite scenes, though, has to be when everyone cancels for Tommy's birthday party. Just the reaction that Rebecca has to that is just it feels so genuine and feels very mom-like, just to break down crying, because in part it is kind of your fault that your son, no one wants to go to your son's party. I mean, not really, it's their problem, but you'd probably feel guilty. I think I would. So I think it's a very well done scene. I also like the scene where Tommy 2.0 is asking about his dad, and like, that would just be awkward, and it's an especially touchy spot for her. So his bombardment of questions would just be so much. So that was really a done scene, and I think the child actor they got for Tommy he was pretty good as a kid. Although, yeah, he was pretty good, and he did a good enough performance that you couldn't even tell. I mean, you could tell that they were two different Tommys and not the same one, because obviously how Tommy would be as an adult is also affected by his environment, parents, friends, blah 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 blah. You probably already know all this, it's not very interesting. But, so yeah. Yeah, actually wait, the time frame of this movie is, I mean, it could be the 90s. It's a little shady. Because Rebecca, when she's 12-ish, no, it says she's 9, and she has a flip phone in 12 years, so she'll be 21 when she gets back. So I guess they would have flip phones. But also, why would she have a flip phone? I don't think many people would just give their kids flip phones, you know? Not a 9. I wouldn't. The fact that she uses it in the bathtub probably says a lot more about her parents than anyone else. Speaking of which, we don't even meet her parents. I don't know what kind of life she had. To where Tommy 2.0 is an adult. I think it's very interesting how slowly more and more jealous she becomes, or maybe I feel too that Rebecca just doesn't want to be alone again. She finally found the person she felt she was going to spend the rest of her life with, and then he died. So I think maybe that's why she made Tommy 2.0. We'll discuss that later on. But, so when the threat of being lonely again is a pretty good one for most people, so I think with Tommy 2.0 bringing in Monica, his girlfriend, into the house kind of just screws everything up for everyone. I mean, not really. She should get over herself, in a sense. I get that she doesn't want to be alone and all that. That's very, it makes sense, but at the same time, you have to let your children go. And maybe she thought she would have her lover again, but now she's realizing she can never have that. Either way, there's like, he's lived with you your whole life, woman. Calm down. And I mean, so if he's 21 again, so she's 42. There's a huge age gap between the two. And Eva Green doesn't seem to age. I mean, there's probably not, but there is. There's subtle differences between 30 and 40, and that probably would have been hard to do. But she doesn't age between 21 to 42. She looks almost identical. So, you know, it is what it is. Also, why Tommy's original mom comes back just to see what he looks like, and of course this screws everything up. It might be for the best, actually, because I doubt Rebecca would let him go willingly. Even though she kind of does later, but you know, whatever. A lot of stuff happens before that. So I don't know why she showed up, maybe just to see him, but where at that point, if this is based in, I think, 2010, 2009, if it's based 21 more years ahead, we have FaceTime now. We have ways that she could easily see him without popping up. You know? Yeah. Maybe I mean, I could get why a mother would want to see that for her own eyes, but at the same time, it just destroys everything. Also, I'd want to know how Tommy would have memories of her. He's like, oh, I know that woman. But how? It's not how cloning works. You don't get the same memories as the person. It's really vague. It's more a science fiction story than anything else now that I think about it. Probably that's what it's supposed to be. So I don't know why Rebecca, when Tommy's like, oh, who was that woman, who was that woman? She could have just lied. I don't know why she was just all quiet and shady about it. She could have just easily been like, oh, she is an old friend, but she's ancient, so, you know, whatever. But yeah, I don't know why she didn't lie. That could have saved her a lot of trouble later on. But I mean, it is fair, and I think it's well done. When it kind of, because it screws Tommy up, and he just kind of takes his anger out at everyone, and Monica's like, I don't want to be part of this, so that's well done. The fact that Rebecca shows him this tape would completely destroy anyone's life. To not know that your mother was not your real mother, and to know that your whole life was kind of a lie, that would be pretty destructive. And he snaps, basically. He snapped. I don't think most people in that situation, I doubt, would have sex with their mother. That seems a little much, if you ask me. When I was rewatching it, I just kind of sit there, I'm like, did this even need to happen? Maybe it was Rebecca's goals finally coming to fruition, get it? But I don't think it needed to happen. It really didn't, the sex scene did not need to happen. It was just really, it's just unnecessary. I don't know what the director was trying to do with that. It is kind of sad that Rebecca's left alone again, but her actions and what she did to Monica and what she kind of does to her own son, maybe she deserves it. I mean, she's not as alone as she thought. It's a lot more interesting than I would say Tommy, but because they don't expand on Tommy, but what is Rebecca's game plan, really? That's my main question I'd like to pose to you guys. What do you think Rebecca's plan was? Did she want a new lover, or did she just want to have the baby of Tommy, which would really, situational. I don't really see how she would manipulate her son to have sex with her. I don't really see how. I mean, she tried. Tried early on, I can tell you that much, with the, oh, I can do whatever I want with you now. Go ahead. Like, that suggestive scene. So maybe that was her goal, or do you think she just didn't want to be alone? Do you think she wanted to have her lover? I don't know, I really can't say anything about it. I'm kind of at a loss as to what a game plan is. Well, yeah. Yeah, I also realized finally, I think this is not the time I watched it yesterday, but the time before, that the beginning of the movie is actually the end of the movie. It's just a big circle that way because she's pregnant. Yeah. So there we go. Maybe you guys didn't know that. Maybe you're a lot smarter than I am and caught that pretty early on. One thing I have to say for sure, though, is Tommy 2.0 is a lot more, not as annoying, weird, or just uncomfortable to be around than Tommy 1, but I do think... Okay, let's talk about Matt Smith. So I'm not a fan of Matt Smith in the slightest. I think it doesn't seem like he's ever the character. He just is like, oh, I'm always gonna be that quirky guy, but I find him weird and uncomfortable and weird and just unnerving. Doctor Who, because you went from David Tennant to him, and I'm just like, you're just making me uncomfortable. And then this movie, he should not have done a drama, or a drama like this. This is right up Eva Green's alley. This is not his kind of thing. The beginning, he's just so irritating, and maybe that's what he wanted to have his character for. But yeah, I can't get into Matt Smith's acting in this movie, and especially at the end, he's like, no, no, no. It's so annoying. Like, shut up. I can't stand Matt Smith, and I think he's the weakest part of this movie. But I'd say it might be he did the performance more weird for Tommy 1 than he did for Tommy 2, because I did like Tommy 2 more. And he does a good job of making the romance feel realistic. But he's just not as strong as Eva Green, and that really shows off in this film. So, if you're a Matt Smith fan, I do apologize. If you like him, maybe I'm missing something about him that you guys see. If you don't like Eva Green, you know, that's fine too. I don't mind. As long as you give him a reason. But yeah, I don't like him in this movie. Maybe he's better in other things. He probably is. And I only watched a few episodes of Doctor Who, so maybe that was a quick judgment, but I just don't think he's good in this movie. So, also a few facts I want to mention before I get into my final thoughts. The trailer is a bit of a lie, I have to say. So the movie kind of makes it seem a bit more incesty, or the trailer makes it seem more of an incest story than anything else. Especially because the trailer shows off the sex scene that happens right at the end. So, but that's not the movie at all. The sex scene is right at the end. It's mostly about her and him, his clone, and then the clone in adult life. So that's what it's about. The trailer really does kind of lie to you and makes it more an incest story than anything else. It isn't. So don't go into the movie thinking you're going to see an incest. I mean, there is an incest scene, but that's about it. Also, yeah, I have some questions though. Was there, for the sex scene, was there blood? That's implying she's a virgin. But at the same time, for artificial insemination, wouldn't that break said thing that would cause blood? I genuinely don't know. I don't know if she would still bleed or if he was just like, it was near rape. I mean, it kind of was. But, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. It's also interesting that she feels she was doing Tommy a favor, but of course he wouldn't have the same memories, so it doesn't make any sense. Her game plan is full of holes. She should have really thought it through more. Also, as it turns out, there were 4 baby actors to play one baby, who doesn't change that much, which is interesting that 4 different babies had to portray one baby. Also, depending on where this film, first of all, it has 2 different names. It's Womb in North America, and it's called Clone in the UK and Europe, I think. I know for sure the UK, but I don't know for Europe. However, the covers are different. Here, Eva Green is more predominant on the cover, which makes sense, she's in the movie more. But Matt Smith is more predominant and the main focus in the UK poster, which is very interesting. Obviously, he was probably more known for Doctor Who, but she was still in Casino Royale at this point, so she would probably have as much recognition, have some recognition. But it's interesting that the American one, I know Doctor Who isn't as big over here as it is in the UK, but it is interesting that they felt she was the more predominant aspect. I mean, she's in the movie more, but marketing-wise, she would still probably be a bit more, she'd be iffier than Matt Smith, for sure. So my final thoughts are, I just don't get the movie. I wanna see the artistic side to it. I wanna see the artistic message. I think a lot of the, what did I call them? Setup shots and the long shots they have, I think those are really, really, really beautiful and well done. Especially when they have like the beach or the cabin. But I just don't get the movie, and I don't see, I want someone to tell me why they have why some people love this movie. I want to see it. I mean, it's well acted, for the most part. It's well edited, it's well shot, it's well directed. What am I missing? I really cannot, I don't know what I'm missing. I want to see it, I want to get it, but I just can't. That might be why I watch it pretty much once a year. I mean, I rewatched it, I was like, I don't know if I like this movie that much, but every time I rewatch it at least once a year, and I'm trying to get the artistic side to it. Maybe I never will. Maybe that's my curse, but I just want to. I want to understand it so much, and I don't know if I ever will. So yeah, I love the setup shots. I think they're really well done. The soundtrack, some people are like, oh, the soundtrack's great. It's one song, and the one song is more or less a transition song, and it's nice, it's melancholy, but it's one song, so they had a whole composer for one song they use all the time. This movie has no other music, so a lot of the scenes feel very raw and very, real, because most of us aren't playing music 24/7 in our conversations. I mean, I do, but I don't know about everyone. So it does make it feel realistic, and it does make it feel more raw, and that probably helps. That it makes it look like it makes the actors seem more real. Except Matt Smith, who always draws me out of it, but whatever. I think this movie, for Eva Green, she does such a good job, and it's Miss G, I couldn't tell it was Eva Green. It seemed like a new character. In this movie, I can tell it seems like a different character. It's just so well done, and they both feel realistic in a lot of ways. I mean, we all are, I think, a bit weird in some ways, so maybe part of us can kind of relate more to Rebecca. Matt Smith's Tommy is just so out there, versus I can't relate to him at all. So all in all, this movie is not for a public audience. They will, I want to get it so bad, but I think a lot of people will be bored by this movie. I was the first time. I mean, especially if you watch a lot of movies that have a lot of action. Let's say, for example, if you went from Cracks to this, it'd be pretty jarring to go from the two. So this movie is just a little too long-winded, and there are a lot of scenes that are good character moments, but don't need to be there. And a lot of them can just be cut, and a lot of them are just establishing shots, is the word I wanted to use. I think establishing shots probably take up about 10 to 15 minutes of the movie just being shown, because there's so many of them. So all in all, it's good to watch as an Eva Green film, to see a great performance of hers, but I don't think, if you're a very casual fan, you don't need to see this one. If you want to do a marathon, I probably would watch it just because of how good she is in this movie, but you could probably skip it. I don't really think you're missing out on too much. It didn't change anyone's perspective of her, but she does a great performance, so that's all I really have to say about it. So that was my review / discussion of Womb. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you come back to check out the next Eva Green Month video, which will be A Perfect Sense, a very depressing film, and I'm not looking forward to watching it again. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, let me know. Let's continue the discussion in the comments, and hopefully you can answer some of my questions, and hopefully someone can explain to me what the appeal of this movie is. So I will hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you back here for Perfect Sense. Farewell for now, and have a wonderful day.